Merhaba, hoş geldiniz. Ozlem from Ozlem's Turkish Table. Today we are making baklava, homemade baklava at home. Before I start making the layers of filo sheets, and I need to show you what I made before. So this is the baklava I baked. It's just freshly out of the oven. And I need to now pour my cooled syrup over this hot piping baklava. This is important because the baklava syrup needs to be cold, whereas the pastry needs to be piping hot so that baklava would absorb all that lovely syrup and it will still be flaky and you could still see the layers all around it. I made double syrup so that I could use it for the one I'm demonstrating. So this is the finished version. I will now, oh, it's hot. I'll now leave this aside and I will show you how to prepare this beautiful, beautiful baklava. Let's pop this actually here so it is right by our side. Perfect. In the meantime, let's make baklava. It is easier than you think. I know it can be overwhelming if you haven't tried before. I use filo pastry sheets as I live abroad. I live in the UK. If you can get baklava sheets, yufka sheets, that's perfect, of course. If not, filo pastry sheets will work just fine. I'll show you the filo sheets I'm using. Just roll. They seem to work pretty well. So what I've done was I have my baking pan here and I have here melted butter. For the full portion you would use about 230 grams of unsalted butter, but I'm halving the portion because I already made one earlier for you guys, so about 115 grams of unsalted butter. So first grease your baking dish, something like that. A Pyrex dish would work really well. And here I cut my filo pastry sheets, and always put a damp towel on top so that you would keep your pastry sheets nice and moist and not dry. That's one of the problems with filo pastry sheets that I know you all face. So always put a damp towel on top, not wet but sort of dampish towel. Now I put 2 sheets here and I will brush my pastry sheets every 2 sheets. I don't brush every sheet. Every 2 sheets of brushing with melted butter seem to be working just fine. You still get those lovely flakes, as you'll see here. That's what we made earlier, and my daughter Emma Gülçin already had a couple of pieces. Children really love it. Right, let's do 2 more sheets. In total, about 20 to 24 sheets would work in baklava. Right, let's put another 2 sheets. If you live in Turkey, if you can get the baklavalık yufka, of course, yufka for baklava, that would be amazing too. But other than that, filo pastry sheets would work just fine. Right, brushing all the way the next 2 sheets, and I'll be using half of the sheets, and when I reach the half, about 10, I will stop and add my nuts to it. I lived in US for 6 years, and I used to teach cookery classes in Austin, Texas. I actually still go back and teach at Central Market Cookery School. Hopefully next year I'll be there again. The filo pastry in the US is in the frozen section. So if you are using frozen sheets, I would either bring it to room temperature 2 hours ahead of time, or ideally I like to defrost it overnight in the fridge and then take out from the fridge about 30 minutes. If you are in the UK or Europe and you can get access to filo pastry sheets, that is actually in the fridge for us in the UK. So if you take out your sheets from the fridge about 20 to 30 minutes ahead of your using, and that would bring it to the room temperature. Right, let's put another two. If you've ever been into Turkey, you know what I mean. The baklava at home in Turkey is such a lovely, delicious treat. It's lighter than what you get the commercial ones abroad. I found the ones abroad quite rich, you know. There's honey, there's syrup, there's this, there's that. It's just too much sugar, too much sweetness for me. If I would have a bite and that would be it, I couldn't have more than that. Whereas baklava at home is a much lighter thing. Of course, it is still a dessert and a treat, but nowhere as sweet as you would get abroad. So I suggest making at home. In that case, you can control how sweet you would like to make your syrup, and yeah, and enjoy it even more. I have a recipe at my cookery book, as you may see over there, Ozlem's Turkish Table. That's my baklava recipe. Signed copies are actually now 30% off if you like to get it from GB Publishing, or there's other options too, ebook and whatnot. Right, okay, I will now do 2 more layers and I will add my filling. One of the lovely things you might do if you go back to Istanbul or first time visitors, take a baklava demonstration sessions. I think Güloğlu in Karaköy still does that. It's really fascinating to see how this special treat being made. It's been perfected in Ottoman palace kitchens, and it is such an incredible treat. And in the demonstration, you will see the ustas, masters, opening the sheets so thin that actually, if you put a newspaper behind the sheet, you could read that newspaper. It's fascinating. Right, I now here have a mixture of walnuts and pistachio nuts. You can use just walnuts, you could use pistachio nuts. For the full recipe, I use 400 grams. Here I'm using about 200 because I'm halving the recipe, and I'll have a bit more. Wonderful, wonderful. And I'm nicely spreading around. And cinnamon, we tend to add cinnamon, about half a teaspoon here as I'm halving the recipe. Full recipe asks for a whole tablespoonful. We love cinnamon in baklava. Wonderful. A bit over there too. Lovely, lovely. Right, more layering. Taking my sheet out and putting on top. Another one. So we're going to cover my sheets like that to cover my filling. Perfect. Now let's add the butter too. There's another version of baklava. It's called sütlü nuriye. Have you heard of that? So that has milk in the syrup, and as a filling, hazelnuts being used traditionally. So that's another lovely variation, and a bit lighter with having milk in the syrup. So with Ramadan festivities coming up, This is one of the traditional desserts we would prepare at home. Another one. One of the things I love about baklava is, like most Turkish desserts, you can prep ahead of time and keep it room temperature. Never store baklava in the fridge because the fat congeals and it would become soggy. Always keep it in a cool area in the house, room temperature, cool area, not in the fridge though. Almost there, could you believe? And we'll be coming to a crucial stage. So here is one of the problems with filo sheets. So this one got a little muddled up and a little broken. It happens, don't worry. Just put it in one of the in-between layers. So I'm gonna just pop it in there like that. Put this one like that. Don't waste anything. I'm gonna put this one at the end. Perfect. But make sure the top sheets are in good condition because we will be cutting the top sheets all the way through. Right, let's put it in there and another bit of and have a good go and make sure all the ends are tucked in, all the surfaces done. And let's have the very last sheet add on top. Wonderful. Just a bit more butter mixture. Of course it is a treat. It's not something you would have every day, but for a special occasion it is a lovely thing to make, and many of my students make this baklava regularly. Wonderful. Now that we had all the layers in, now this is the crucial stage. What we'll do now is, with a sharp knife, before you bake baklava, you need to cut diagonal shape slices, and then we will bake in the oven 160 Celsius 325 Fahrenheit for about 40 minutes or so. But first of all we must cut it. So with my clean hands, with the sharp knife and point a bit down, I am cutting all the way to create diagonal parallel lines. Just to make sure, go one more time to make sure it's cut all the way through, and another parallel line. If you don't cut your baklava before you bake, you won't be able to cut once it's baked, because it will be too flaky, it will crumble, and you won't be able to cut it, and hence the syrup won't be able to penetrate between the slices. So always make sure your knife is sharp, and I turn around because it's hard to get to this edges. Perfect. Let's do this one too, all the way. Let's cut. When I was teaching in the US, some of my students used pecan nuts in the filling, and that worked well too if that's what you like to use. But generally walnuts are, or pistachios, or a mixture is what we would use traditionally. Lovely. So we cut all the way and did the parallel lines. Now I'm gonna go the other way around, and now it will get a little bit fiddly. The sheets might move, but don't worry, it will all come together at the end nicely. Right, let's again have some support with your fingers and cut all the way down. Make sure your knife goes through all the layers, including the very bottom layer. Another one. Now it starts moving, as you see, but don't worry, you can gently put it back. Right. You could do a square or you could do a diagonal shape. Wonderful. Right, let's do another one. Lovely. This way. Wonderful. One more. Let's do these end bits too. It's quite a workout, but it's well worth it. Honestly, you'll be so amazed how well it will turn out and how delicious it is. Right, that's perfect. So we cut all the way through. I'm happy with that. So even if any of the bits had moved, just gently put it back with your fingers, and it's really, really good. So we sliced our baklava. Now it will gonna go to the oven, 160 degrees, 325 Fahrenheit, for about 40 or 45 minutes. And once it's cooked, it will come and turn into this gorgeous goldeny color. And then once it's cooked after 45 minutes, you need to have your cold syrup ready. So the syrup is very simple. For the full amount, if you're doing the full amount, it's 450 gram, 1 pound sugar to 420 ml, 14 fluid ounces water. So I put the water and the sugar in a pan and a medium heat. It all dissolved. I stirred, and then I squeezed half a lemon to it and let the syrup simmer for about 15 minutes. It thickened a little bit, but you know, it's quite a, as you see, liquidy syrup. It's not very, very thick syrup. And lemon adds a really lovely, refreshing flavor. And once the syrup is cooked, I cool it down. I actually make my syrup a day ahead of time because you know you can keep it in room temperature. So make your syrup ahead of time. Make sure your syrup is cold, whereas your baklava is piping hot. And as soon as your baklava is out of the oven, you pour the syrup as we've done over your baklava, and look, it has lovely glaze. It still has this beautiful layers. And once it's cooled, you can have it take out with a nice spatula, and you'll see those nice layers, the filling, and it really is such a special treat. I truly hope you would have a go. My recipe is at my book, Ozlem's Turkish Table, as well as in my blog. Any questions, do let me know, and I hope you truly enjoy it. Afiyet olsun.